Okay, we will get started. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the County District 4 Virtual Grants Workshop hosted by the Office of Supervisor Monica Montgomery Stepp. My name is Karen Montufar Federico, and I am the Deputy Director of Community Engagement and Economic Development for Supervisor Montgomery Stepp, and it is the community engagement team that manages grants for County District 4 office. Tonight, we will give you a presentation on our grants process, and at the end of the presentation, we will have a Q&A and a survey for feedback at the end of the webinar. Feel free to add your questions to the chat now. We will answer them at the end of the presentation. On the screen, you will see the team joining us tonight for our workshop. So again, my name is Karen Montufar Federico. I am the Deputy Director of Community Engagement and Economic Development.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for spending part of your evening with us. My name is Kaylee Quesada, use she for ella pronouns. And my role is the Community Engagement and Communications Associate for Supervisor Montgomery Stepp.
Hi, everyone. My name is Elise Pendoli, and I am a student worker for the Community Engagement team for the District 4 office of Monica Montgomery Stepp. I use she, her pronouns.
Good
Awesome.
evening,
So you'll be here. Sorry, Jazzy, go for it. Go for it.
I'm just participating from the policy team, working with community engagement with D4. Thanks.
Awesome. So you'll be hearing from all of us tonight throughout the presentation. We'll be covering different parts of the County District 4 grant process. Okay. On the screen here, you see the rest of our community engagement team. Our team works closely with community-based organizations throughout the grant process, from application support to community engagement. You're always welcome to reach out to anyone on the screen here for any questions you have. So on tonight's agenda, we will review the 3 phases of our grants process, which are to apply, allocate, and administer. In the apply phase, we will review the supervisor's priorities, grant schedule, the types of grants available, our website, and mandatory documentation. In the allocate phase, we will review our evaluation criteria and things to be aware of if you choose to be a fiscal sponsor. And lastly, we will review what happens in the administer phase if you are selected to receive grant funds from our office. Elise will start us off with the supervisor's priorities.
Thank you, Karen. Before we discuss the application process, it is important to understand the priorities that guide our grant decisions. Supervisor Montgomery Stepp's priorities are housing and homelessness, clean and healthy communities, economic opportunity for all, and reimagining public safety. For housing and homelessness, examples of alignment may include increasing access to affordable housing, expanding shelter resources, or providing wraparound services. For clean and healthy communities, examples may include neighborhood beautification, addressing public health needs, or supporting arts and culture programs. For economic opportunity for all, examples include workforce development programs, creating employment opportunities for historically underserved communities, or addressing economic barriers. For reimagining public safety, examples may include youth mentoring programs, restorative justice efforts, and community-based approaches to safety. If your grant request demonstrates alignment with at least one of these priorities, your application will be strongly considered during this evaluation process. Ultimately, these priorities serve as what our office refers to as our pillars of governance. These pillars guide our policy decisions where we distribute grant funding and appointments to our boards, commissions, and committees. They serve as our North Star by providing direction and purpose for how we serve our communities. Overall, these pillars of governance are how we serve District 4. On the screen, you can see the boundaries of County District 4, where we cover the unincorporated areas of Spring Valley and Casa de Oro, Mount Helix, and Rancho San Diego, and then also incorporated areas including the city of Lemon Grove, city of La Mesa, and parts of the city of San Diego. Our district stretches from Claremont in the north to Old Town in the west to Rancho San Diego in the east and Paradise Hills in the south. When we evaluate these grant applications, we do prioritize organizations and projects that directly serve County District 4 residents.
Thank you, Elise. Now we will discuss the grant schedule and some important considerations before submitting an application. So we are currently in a new fiscal year, 25-26, that began July 1st, 2026, and will end June 30th, 2027. Within this time, we have two deadlines, September 15th and March 15th. We are currently in cycle 1. Applications submitted after September 15th will be reviewed according to the cycle 2 schedule. We do accept applications throughout the year. Our schedule is broken into 3 steps, the deadline, the review, and announcements. You can see those dates for each cycle on the screen. It is important to note that in the District 4 office, organizations may receive one neighborhood reinvestment program award and/or one community enhancement award per fiscal year. To say it in other words, an organization will not receive 2 awards within the same grant cycle. You are, of course, welcome to submit applications for both, but please keep in mind that organizations will not receive both awards in the same cycle. Also, do want to note that the board office has discretion to either fully fund, partially fund, or not fund requested items. This is why it is so important to be intentional and specific when describing your funding request. Next, Kaylee will walk us through the 2 grant programs available through County District 4.
Yes, thank you, Karen. So as Karen mentioned, there are 2 grant programs that we will discuss today, the Neighborhood Reinvestment Program, or NRP, and the Community Enhancement Program, which we call CE. At the beginning of each fiscal year, which is July 1st, each Board of Supervisors office receives an allocation of funding for these programs. For fiscal year 26-27, District 4 received $2 million for Neighborhood Reinvestment Program funding and approximately $1.6 million for community enhancement funding. I will walk through each program, including eligible expenses, examples of previously funded requests, and key considerations when deciding which grant program best fits your projects. So starting with the Neighborhood Reinvestment Program, or NRP, it can be summarized really into one phrase, which is one-time expenses. So NRP funds may be used for capital improvements, purchasing and installing equipment, purchasing and installing technology, and purchasing food, including food for individuals in need or animal feed as well. These funds are intended for expenses that occur one time rather than ongoing operational costs. For example, NRP funds cannot be used for recurring expenses such as rent, rental costs, salaries, or ongoing operational expenses. For fiscal year 26-27, District 4's NRP allocation is about $2 million. So as you prepare your application, please ask yourself, are the requested funds being used to purchase or improve physical assets, technology, or food rather than support routine operations? And are all requested items intended to be purchased one time rather than paid for on an ongoing basis? So if the answer is yes to both of these questions, NRP may be the appropriate grant program for your request. Here on the screen are a few examples of previously awarded NRP requests. These examples demonstrate the types of one-time expenses that align with the program. So, for example, the Chicano Federation, they requested $30,000 to replace an elevator system in a senior affordable housing complex in District 4. Kitchens for Good requested $75,000 to be used to purchase essential cold storage units. And Media Arts Center of San Diego requested $8,500 to pay for event supplies and equipment and one-time software fees, along with food for those in need of assistance at different event workshops. So as you can see, all three of these examples request clearly, they identify what will be purchased, and it is very clear that the expense is a one-time investment and not an ongoing operational cost. So on the other hand, the purpose of community enhancement is to stimulate tourism, promote the economy, create jobs, or nurture a better quality of life. Examples include promoting tourism through event support, fostering economic development through salary support, and improving quality of life through program support. Our funding amount for CE for fiscal year 26-27 is $1.6 million, which is nearly a $400,000 increase in grant funds from last fiscal year. So again, as you draft your grant proposals, please do ask yourselves, can I clearly demonstrate how my project benefits the community through increased visitor engagement, economic opportunity, cultural enrichment, or improved quality of life? And here are some examples of grant allocations for CE. So starting from the left, Black Women Adventures Incorporated requested $5,000 to pay for staff salaries for their community wellness cohort pilot program, which aims to educate, raise awareness, provide certifications, and support the community around health and wellness careers. Humble Design requested $20,000 for staff salaries. And Birthline of San Diego requested $15,000 for diapers, formula, clothing, and other items as well. So really, as a recap, on the screen, you will see important takeaways as you build your grant application. Community enhancement funds can fund salaries, program support, and events, whereas neighborhood reinvestment programs can only fund one-time expenses like new technology, equipment, and capital improvements. Neither program can use funds for stipends, gift cards, scholarships, or cash awards. Grant funds shall not be used for religious, political campaigning, or purely private purposes or activities. And grant funding requests also may not exceed 50% of an organization's current fiscal year operating budget. So when preparing your application, please do make sure that your request aligns with the correct grant program, as I laid out, either community enhancement or neighborhood reinvestment program, and clearly explain how your funds will be used. And with that, I will hand it back to Karen.
Thank you, Kaylee. So again, before applying, please make sure your organization meets the eligibility requirements. Those being, eligible applicants must be nonprofits, organizations, or government, public and/or public agencies operating within San Diego County, in good standing with the California Attorney General, and in good standing with the California Secretary of State. Please use the QR codes on the slides to verify your organization's status. These links are also available on our website on the application page for both of these grants. Organizations that are not registered with the Attorney General, are delinquent with the Attorney General, not registered with the Secretary of State, or have an inactive or expired status with the Secretary of State are not eligible for grant funding. Please complete these verification steps before submitting your application. Next, Elise will walk us through the application process and required submission.
Thank you, Karen. Excuse me. Thank you, Karen. So to be considered for funding, All applications must be submitted through Supervisor Monica Montgomery Stepp's website, which is shown here at www.supervisormonicamontgomerystepp.com. The application process includes 3 key steps. So, to answer the supplemental questions, to submit the completed application, and to submit all required documentation. Incomplete applications or missing documentation may impact an organization's eligibility for consideration. Next, we will review the supplemental questions and what information our team uses when evaluating applications. As part of the application process, organizations must complete 9 supplemental questions. These questions help our team better understand your organization, the communities you serve, and how your request aligns with District 4's priorities. Some examples include: what is your organization's mission? If your grant request is serving County District 4 residents, what are the intended measured outcomes? Addresses of events and locations of programmatic efforts? And how is your grant request aligned with the supervisor's priorities? Please remember that all supplemental questions must be completed for your application to be considered complete.
Thank you. Okay, so now we will review the application itself. The Community Enhancement and Neighborhood Reinvestment applications are separate. So organizations in applying for both programs must complete a separate application for each. For community enhancement, organizations may submit up to 5 activities. For neighborhood reinvestment, organizations may submit 1 activity. Within the application, you will be asked to provide information regarding eligibility, organization details, proposal amount, activities to be funded, performance indicators, contact information, and financial solvency. A few important reminders for the organization section. Please use the organization name exactly as it appears on your official documentation, like your tax documents. This will help the organization's application through the entire review process. For the activities to be funded section, clearly explain what activities you are supporting, why you are requesting funding, and specifically and most importantly, what grant funds will pay for. We recommend using language such as funding will be used to purchase, dot, dot, dot. Be specific and describe exactly what you intend to purchase. Moving on to performance indicators, this section helps us understand how your organization measures impact and what other funding partners or sources support your project. Finally, the financial solvency section should reflect your organization's overall financial health, not just a specific project you're requesting funding for. Please provide a summary budget information for the prior fiscal year actuals and the current fiscal year's budget. Also, please remember your total grant funding request cannot exceed 50% of your organization's current fiscal year operating budget. So if your organization operating budget is 100,000, your grant request cannot be more than 50,000. Moving on to mandatory documentation. Again, organizations that are eligible to apply for funds are 501c3s, public and government agencies, and churches are also able to apply to our grant programs. To be considered complete, applications must include all required documents listed on this slide. The required documents include a completed application, a cover letter, and itemized expenses related to the grant request, a signed resolution of the Board of Directors, a signed Levine Act forms, IRS letter showing tax exempt status, either your IRS 990, 990EZ, or your 990NE postcard, and a screenshot of your Attorney General registration status and a screenshot of your Secretary of State status. I want to highlight two important items. First, the cover letter. The cover letter should provide a clear summary of your request, including who your organization is, what funding you are requesting, and why you are requesting it. This is another opportunity to clearly explain how grant funds will be used. Again, we encourage language such as funding will be used to purchase X, Y, and Z. Second, the Board of Directors resolution and Levine Act form. 60% of the applications that we received in our last cycle were considered incomplete due to missing signatures on the Board of Directors forms and the Levine Act forms. Please make sure that you fill out these forms completely and accurately. So, how do you do that? Every person who signs the Board of Resolution must also complete the Levine Act form and sign those Levine Act forms. Additionally, the two people listed on your application, those being the grant contact and the grant administrator, must complete the Levine Act form. So at the minimum, we should be receiving two Levine Act forms. And those forms are included in the application. So we will now, we have reviewed the application process. We have covered, we will now move on to the allocate phase. During this section, we will discuss how applications are evaluated and other considerations for organizations considering to be fiscal sponsors. So let's review our evaluation criteria. To provide some context, our office receives a high volume of applications. Each grant cycle, we receive around 200 to 250 applications per cycle. After the application closes, our team begins reviewing each application for completeness. This includes confirming that all required documentations are submitted, forms are fully completed. That means that all the appropriate signatures and dates are included, and that the organization is in good standing. Because of the volume of the applications we receive, incomplete applications or missing documentations will impact the organization's ability to receive funding. After the initial documentation review process, applications are evaluated based on the 4 priority areas. So, is the organization located in District 4? Is the grant request intended to serve District 4 residents? Will the grant request provide a direct service? And lastly, does the request align with the supervisor's priorities? This criteria will help ensure that the grant funding is intentionally directed towards organizations and projects that serve District 4 communities. In addition to eligibility and priority alignment, we also evaluate the overall quality and completeness of each application. We look at attention to detail. Did the organization apply for the correct grant program? Are the requested expenses eligible? Was the required information provided clearly? And we also look at clarity and relevance. We need enough information to understand what you are requesting, how funds will be used, and what impact the funding will create. If an application only describes an event or program without explaining what grant funds will support or what it will be purchased, it will be difficult for our team to evaluate. We also consider whether the request is realistic, practical, achievable, and aligned with the organization's capacity. Organizations must demonstrate the ability to successfully manage a county grant agreement. We also consider external factors and what's going on in real time. And this also influences prioritization based on current community needs. For example, during the January 2024 floods, organizations providing direct support to impacted residents received priority consideration. And more recently, requests addressing urgent community needs like housing, food access, health and wellness, and mental health have also been considered given the current presidential administration impact to the community. Next, we will go over the administration phase, which includes grant agreements, grant periods, check processing, and reporting. So, this phase is completely managed by the county's Economic Development and Government Affairs Department, also known as EDGA. Again, we will go over grant agreements, grant periods, check processing, and reporting requirements. So, grant agreement. The grant agreement is an official document that outlines the terms and requirements of your award. This will be emailed to the folks that are listed on the application. So, please check your spam inbox. The agreement includes important information such as approval date, effective date, award amount, and the approved grant purpose. Please review this language carefully. Um, Grant funds must only be spent on approved activities and expenses included in the agreement. The grant period. The grant period begins on the effective date listed on your agreement. Organizations typically have 12 months to spend grant funds and 1 month after the grant period ends to complete and submit required reporting. Please pay close attention to your grant period start date. Expenses incurred before the effective date or after the grant period will not be eligible for reimbursement. Check processing. This is always a question we get. When will we receive a check? So once the agreement is fully executed, meaning all signatures and documents have been received, EDGA will begin the payment process. The standard processing timeline is approximately 6 to 8 weeks after you sign the contract and could take up to 8 to 12 weeks closer to the end of the fiscal year. Processing time may also depend on whether your organization is an established county supplier, meaning you have received a grant in the past, or if you are a new supplier requiring additional setup, meaning this is your first time receiving a county grant. To avoid delays, please make sure your organization supplier information is current. Reporting. Organizations are responsible for submitting required reports documenting how grant funds were used. Approximately 11 months into the grant period, organizations will receive a reminder letter regarding reporting requirements. The report must include documentation on grant expenditures, including a list of expenditures and supporting backup documentation. That includes invoices, receipts, or other proof of payment. These reports may be emailed or mailed by USPS or delivered a hand copy to EDGA at the county building. Please do not submit original documents and please keep copies for your organization's records. Reporting. So it is also important to remain compliant during the grant period. Organizations may become delinquent if they spend funds outside of the approved grant period or spend funds on items not included in the approved grant purpose or submit incomplete documentation. If grant requirements are not met, matters may be referred to the Office of Revenue and Recovery. This means that your organization will be delinquent and will not be eligible for future grant awards until those issues are completed. So if you have any questions related to this reporting or contracts, we will point you to Economic Development and Government Affairs, who handles that portion of the grant process. Their information is on the screen now. So next, I will hand it off to Kaylee to go over fiscal sponsorship.
Yes, thank you, Karen. So some organizations interested in applying for our grant programs may not currently have a nonprofit status. In these cases, we recommend identifying a fiscal sponsor that has established nonprofit status and can apply on behalf of the organization. It is important to understand that the agreement is between the fiscal sponsor and the County of San Diego, not between the county and the organization being sponsored. The fiscal sponsor assumes full responsibility for the grant agreement, including managing grant funds, maintaining receipts and documentation, and submitting required reports. We strongly encourage fiscal sponsors and sponsored organizations to establish a written agreement that clearly defines roles, responsibilities, and expectations throughout the grant period. If grant funds are spent outside of the approved grant period, used for unapproved purposes, or required documentation is not provided, the fiscal sponsor is responsible for resolving these issues. Once funds are allocated and the contract is transitioned to EDGA, post-award issues are managed through EDGA rather than District 4 staff. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Elise.
Thank you, Kaylee. So as we wrap up today's presentation, we want to leave you with a couple of helpful reminders. Remember to apply through Supervisor Monica Montgomery Stepp's website, which is shown on the slide. Be mindful of the grant cycles and deadlines. Consider applying to multiple supervisorial district offices if your organization serves multiple areas. And contact our office with questions before submitting your application. So our District 4 grants contact is shown at 619-531-5544 or to email district4grants at sdcounty.ca.gov. For any EDGA related questions, you can email cenrpgrants@sdcounty.ca.gov. So at the end of the day, our goal is to support organizations that are serving our communities while helping build organizational capacity. San Diego County is home to thousands of nonprofit organizations, and nonprofits play a critical role in supporting residents throughout our region. Our office is committed to partnering with organizations that serve historically underserved communities and vulnerable populations through District 4. Thank you so much for your time today, and we look forward to reviewing all of your grant applications.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Elise and Kaylee. We will now open up the Q&A. Feel free to click on the Q&A button at the bottom of your Zoom screen to type in your questions. So we will start the Q&A portion.
I can read you the first question, Karen, if you're ready. So our first question is, can we have a copy of the PPT slides presentation?
So yes, we can email the presentation to you after this. This presentation will also live on our website, supervisormonicamontgomerystep.com under the grants tab.
All right, I will read the next question. Someone said we were funded for community outreach. We have identified some other areas that we would like to support through the funding received. How do we go about inquiring if those identified areas could be supported by funds already approved?
Yeah, so this one is a bit tricky. To start off, we can always, if you have received an award and you want to explore using the funds, or something that may be slightly outside of the contract, you're always welcome to reach out to us, reach out to me, set up a meeting, and we can go over what exactly was included in your grant contract and see if it is eligible for those new things. I will say if you submit an application and you ask for X, Y, and Z, and you receive funds for X and Y, and you then you come back and say, actually, we found something else and we want to fund A. If A was not in your application, it would not be possible to fund A type of activities. And we could, if you have any particular scenarios, I'm always happy to set up a one-on-one meeting with you and your organization.
Karen, Leah Praster, apologize if I'm not pronouncing correctly, asked, will the slides be emailed to us or this replay?
Yes, slides will be emailed and they will also live on the website.
For our next question, is applying free or applying is free? Question.
Yes, applying is free. Don't have to pay anything. So no funds required to submit an application.
Thank you. Our next question, are new businesses accepted?
So no, businesses are not eligible for these grant funds. You do have to be a nonprofit, um, or be a public agency or a government agency. Those are the only entities that are eligible for grant funds.
Our next question is, can orgs who have previously been denied reach out to the office to know why previous applications weren't selected?
Yes. If you reach out to us, send me an email or give us a call. We'll be happy to review your application and give you insight as to why applications were denied. Um, more Our community enhancement fund is the most popular grant fund. We do receive a majority of the applications for community enhancement, and it's also our smallest grant fund. So usually it's just a matter of money being available. But again, we're always happy to set up a one-on-one meeting to review your application.
For our next question, health initiatives, physical and mental, had been mentioned several times as examples for programs or initiatives that can be considered for
The
grant
next
approval.
question,
Oh, sorry. What was that, Jazzy? Okay, I'll continue. So for programs or initiatives that can be considered for grant approval, between the two program priorities of the supervisor, where does the health program or initiative fall under?
I would say that could be under clean and healthy communities, just depending on how you are wording or what exactly grant funds will be paid for. But I think that could go under clean and safe communities or even reimagining public safety.
Thank you. The next question says, we can't win both awards in the same cycle, but if awarded for fiscal year 26 for San Diego County, we can apply for and be awarded in fiscal year 27, correct?
Yes. Correct. Once we begin the new fiscal year, we kind of start over. And if an, yes, so to answer your question, yes. I'm
I
seeing next question. Would the district team be open to site tours to view direct services and or programming? And will the grant awards be split evenly between the two deadlines? So yes, we are always open and willing to do site tours. So please send us you can send an email to district4grants@sdcounty.ca.gov to invite us for those tours. Of course, the earlier you do that, the better for scheduling purposes. And will grant awards be split evenly between two deadlines? We try our best to split the awards evenly, but it doesn't always happen. And I think the last 2 years it hasn't happened. We usually do eat up more into our grant funding in the first cycle than our second cycle. So we always recommend for folks to apply in the first cycle if possible to make sure that you have your best chance for funding.
Okay, next question. Our nonprofit recently submitted and paid for its registration with the California Attorney General's Registry of Charities, but the status is still being processed. Can we apply during this funding cycle?
Yes, you can apply. This does happen, and we do see it frequently that the state does take time to process these type of things. In this particular case, we would just ask that you submit your receipt that you paid for the registration, and that will count for that requirement. So yes, you can apply, and please submit your receipt of payment.
Thank you. The next question is, can you remind us of the submission deadlines for District 4?
Yes, the submission deadlines, the first upcoming deadline is September 15th, 11:59 p.m. and March 15, 2027, 11:59 p.m.
Okay, our next question is it only for nonprofit organizations?
No, it is not just for nonprofit organizations. This is open to government agencies, public agencies, and churches.
Thank you. The next one is, can we discuss the areas we would like to request for funds before completing the application?
Yes, we can discuss areas if you want to set up a one-on-one meeting. I'll always happy to talk through potential ideas. However, we will not review your application. So I do just want to share like that that difference. We can always discuss ideas for funds, but we will not be reviewing your application during a meeting.
Our next question, Dan from So Say We All. If our California Attorney General says current in process, is that okay? Meaning we paid our fees and they are in process.
Yes, that is perfectly fine. Um, that is acceptable. The only status we do not accept and would deem an organization ineligible is if your attorney general status says delinquent. Any other status is acceptable. And again, if you have recently registered and don't see that reflected on the website, please submit your receipt of payment, and that will be uh, appropriate.
Thank you. The next question is a public benefit corp eligible?
Yes, those public benefit corps are eligible.
Our next question, are all the forms part of the application, or do I need to find the W-9 and the other form separately?
So all forms of the application are in one, they're in one packet. Again, you can access that application on our website, supervisormonicamontgomerystep.com, under the grants tab. There will be like a blue download button. The W-9 portion will only come into play if you are um, awarded a grant. So that will be at a later point.
Thank you. The next question is, our organization was declined grant funding in fiscal year 26 for District 4. We are applying again with a different approach. So what tips or advice do you have? We did apply toward the end of county fiscal year 26.
Yeah, so we're always open to having a one-on-one meeting to kind of discuss what exactly was the situation with your organization. Sometimes it's the application was incomplete due to some missing signatures or missing documents, and therefore was ineligible for awards. And sometimes it's the application not being very clear about how you serve District 4 residents or where in District 4 your program or events are held. Um, or sometimes it's just a matter of us being late in the fiscal year and just not having enough funds. So just tips are please meet with us to be clear about how District 4 residents are being impacted. Where in District 4 are you going to be? If we don't see or hear of any of those things, we're going to assume that you are not serving District 4. So always list locations, that you will be in or neighborhoods that you serve in District 4.
Thank you. Our next question, can you remind us of the funding priorities and categories?
Yeah, so funding priorities are Um, most importantly right now is food security. So anything related to food, food pantries, outreach, mental health, behavioral health, anything related to our pillars of governance would be priorities. And when we review the applications, we look at is your organization in District 4? Is your request serving District 4 residents? Um, is your request a direct service? And is the request aligned with the supervisor's priorities?
Thank you. Our next question is just to confirm, if we apply for a CE grant on September 15th and it is awarded to us, that means we cannot apply for an NRP grant on March 15th.
No, incorrect. If you apply for a CE grant on September 15th and you are awarded a CE grant, that means you cannot be awarded a CE grant in the second cycle after March 15th. Um, you're always welcome to submit if you were awarded a CE grant in September 15th. You're always welcome to submit a CE application, but you would not be awarded a CE application in that same fiscal year. Um, so if you applied for CE, was awarded a CE, that means that you would not be eligible for a CE grant in the second cycle, but you can submit an NRP application in March and be awarded an NRP in March.
Next question, could you restate supervisor steps priorities, mainly the sub priorities?
The priorities are economic opportunity for all, reimagining public safety, clean and healthy communities, and housing and homelessness.
Thank you. The next question is, are the applications read by a person or scanned by an automated system?
They are completely read by person. We read every single box and we look at every single document that is submitted. So, read entirely by a person. And those people are the community engagement team.
Thank you. Can the area where the event or activity will be offered be outside of District 4, but still accessible to the community members of District 4?
Yes, of course. That is always that is allowable. Um, and we do take a look at not just making sure that something is in District 4, but something that is open to District 4 residents. In this particular case, I would encourage you to share how you will outreach and ensure that District 4 residents know about this event. So that is something that we would look for if the event or program isn't specifically in District 4 boundaries.
Thank you. The next question is, in regards to housing, can we use the neighborhood reinvestment grant to update housing?
To update housing, I'm not really understanding that question. The neighborhood reinvestment program is able to be used for capital projects and infrastructure. So if you're doing an infrastructure or capital improvement, it is allowable.
Another question, how to schedule the one-on-one for failed applications?
Yes, you can, if you receive an email notifying you of not receiving an award, you can respond to that email, which would have come from District 4 grants at sdcounty.ca.gov, and just request a meeting, and we will work to schedule a meeting.
Thank you. Our last question in the queue for now is, our organization is still pretty small. Would it be acceptable if we track our finances using QuickBooks?
Um, I would not be able to answer that question at this time. I would want to connect with our economic development and government affairs team, just to make sure you get the correct information, so we can follow up with you on that particular question. Um, so we answered a lot of questions today. Uh, Thank you all for joining us this evening. At the end of, we are going to be concluding this webinar. At the conclusion of this webinar, a survey will pop up. Please complete the survey to give us feedback on the workshop. There is also a space there for any additional questions you may still have regarding the grant process. So thank you all for all you do in service of our communities. Good night.